Welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic, 80th anniversary of the liberation at Auschwitz Concentration Camp. But American Black history, millions of American Blacks are told to do what? Get over their past. What other culture within Americanism for centuries have been the most hated group? The most hateful policies and laws put upon the people, and then minimized it, and then try to play affirmative action tactics and act like that they are the progenitors of affirmative action, and then try to play DEI games with them and tell them that they are woke and they're playing the race card. But at the same time, again, who has the most lynchings in America? The most, again, inhuman, hateful laws, and still get no reparations. Who again? Oh, it must be certain numbers of personnel within the Panamese culture. I don't think so. Well, it has to be numbers of Hispanics or white Hispanics. Stop playing. Well, it has to be certain number of Asians. Asia is a continent, and there are numbers of Asians who can't stand other Asians. Well, it must be the Native Americans. You really need to go to Hades with that damn game. There is quite a number of Native Americans who can't stand other Native Americans. And who came before what we call Native Americans? So we're not going to play that game. And how many Native Americans get reparations? And still talking about the white man took our land. White man took our land. But they're never told to get over the past. Yes. And there are people who don't want that kind of truth. Oh, they don't like that, right? And there are numbers of people within certain parts of Panamese culture do that have a progenitorial of mental derangement, right? The ones it applies to, right? That they have an anti-American Black hatred, right? Toward specifically American Blacks, but nobody else, right? But in this situation, the 80th anniversary of the liberation at Auschwitz Concentration Camp, but American Black history, get over it. And the answer to the question I asked is nobody else comes close to the American Blacks. Nobody in America. But how many have benefit of border breaking, illegal immigrant to America, or immigrating this various levels? Ones that have the face of Black, who know they are, that hide behind the face of American Black, the ones applies to, right? You get the point, right? And benefit off of American Black pain. But people know their places not to sit there and tell people, hey, start talking about that old bad Hitler guy in Germany that did that to high numbers of Jewish people. You don't they don't tell those kind of people, get over the past. You said a discussing tactic, right? In this topic today, I'm going to go and get into some of these videos before I get to the main video. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and play this particular video because I wasn't quite sure which one I was going to play first. Because one thing about it is when you say the word Jewish, the people know what I'm talking about. Oh, it's almost like, well, it's not a race. Well, it's not ethnicity. Well, you say this, well, you're anti-Semitic. You say, what are you talking about? Because Jewishism means practicing the Judaism faith. So how is it that you have, however, personnel that have now gravitated to sit there and be able to utilize that word and say, well, if they don't like what you say, well, you're anti-Semitic. Are you crazy? You see this? You see this little situation? And unfortunately, there's not enough American Blacks that read about how these games are played. But let me go ahead and play this particular first video from the greatness of a great African American or American Black, shall I say, scholar that has passed on, may his soul rest, the Dr. John Henry Clarke.
What exactly are we talking about? Because our mind is so dazzled with folklore, and we cannot separate folklore from fact. Too many times we swear by folklore, not knowing that it has nothing to do with facts. Who exactly is a Jew? There was no word called Jew in the ancient world.
Uh-huh.
The word Jew did not come out of Africa. It did not come out of Western Asia. It is a European word. There are people of the Hebrew faith all over the world.
But we're just going to keep pretending, right? It's about a one look of a people, and it continues to be allowed to be showcased that way. But American Blacks are told to get over the past.
There are black Hebrews, there are brown Hebrews, there are yellow Hebrews. How is it that a bunch of Europeans called Jews dominate the word Jew to the extent of making you think that the very faith Hebrew is exclusive to them, leaving out all other people?
And unfortunately, there are millions, with very few exceptions, within American Blackism who know the game of how a person who know they are, that will tell you you're anti-Semitic. If you try to minimize that person's history, and how many don't even know their own history, which I don't make going to go into this one. But American Blacks are told to get over the past, right? You see that game. But let me continue playing the greatness of Dr. John Henry Clarke, who was and is in the form of the spiritual form, still an American Black.
We become prisoners to circumstances in history. Becoming prisoner to these circumstances in history, we still react to this conquest of the mind. In slavery, we wanted to associate ourselves with the people who had escaped from something. So we read a Jewish escape story called the Exodus. And we believed it. And we didn't examine the story. Because if you examine the story, you will find the story is told to instill faith in a people. And sometimes, if a story is told to instill faith and truth, the illustration used to get the point across need not be true. 100,000 people crossed the Nile. Cows, children, goats, sheep, get on the other side. No laws. The Nile just dried up. It must have been muddy. Maybe you can get their feet muddy. Now you can do it with imagination, but in fact you can't do it.
But you got people that just want to keep believing. Numbers of people playing little tactics. Okay.
They copied, these Western Asian people copied Nile Valley folk stories. You can't do it. They copied, these Western Asian people copied Nile Valley folk stories, personified themselves into the story, and sold you your own story, and you bought it.
The games.
Folk stories. They copied, these Western Asian people copied Nile Valley folk stories, personified themselves into the story, and sold you your own story, and you bought it. Now let's go back and deal with where they copied the story from. There's a 3-volume work published by the University of Chicago on Egyptian literature. I would appreciate it if the people on my right would just let me be heard. Dealing with Egyptian literature. And there is a story in the 3 volumes dealing with a pharaoh who got somewhat despondent, and his magician decided to take him rowing on the Nile. And to make him more happy, the boat was being rowed by beautiful ladies. The lead lady stopped rowing and started crying, and the Pharaoh was very much concerned with what had happened. And he asked the lead lady what had happened. He said she had dropped her necklace in the Nile. And the Pharaoh told the magician to take care of it. At this period in history, all kings or pharaohs travel with a magician. Instead of you and I having a fight, we have a contest between our respective magicians. We didn't take the nation to war. The 2 magicians settled the matter. So this magician parted the water, dried up the Nile, stepped out, picked up the lady's necklace, gave it back, water came back, she smiled and kept rowing the boat over. That's why the Jews copied the story about the part of the boat.
But at the same time, you have millions of American blacks, with very few exceptions, that allow people to play little tactics and dictate the story of what supposed to be is what Jawish personnel is supposed to be. Okay, I got it.
What I am saying is that at this period in history, there was no such thing as a Jew. There were Western Asian people who later joined the Hebrew faith. There was an extensive series who later joined the Hebrew faith, the Jew. There were Western Asian people who later joined the Hebrew faith. Period. And that's why the Jews copied the story about the part of the war. What I am saying is that at this period in history, there was no such thing as a Jew. There were Western Asian people who later joined the Hebrew faith. There was an extensive series on the history of the Jews. They gave them an artificial history before Babylonia.
Again, you have personnel, especially millions of American blacks, that do not know the game that's being played over and over and over. You got people that are doing like this. They see nothing. They see nothing. They hear nothing, and they know nothing. And there are people who see a lot, and there are people who hear a lot, and there are people who know all kind of stuff of reality, but they're not going to tell the Negroes about reality. They say, well, if they don't sit there and really want to study, well, we ain't going to tell them. You know, very few exceptions of American blacks who know the games, who know the story of how Jawishism came to exist overall.
But they had no clear history. But they had no clear history. But they had no clear history before their entry into Africa as visitors seeking food and shelter. There in Africa, they sought and found food and shelter. They entered Africa with no clear language, found food and shelter. They entered Africa with no clear language, no clear religion, and no clear culture. No clear language, no clear religion, and they entered Africa with no clear language, no clear religion, and no clear culture. When they left, they came as 70 in number. They left 600,000 in number. They had a culture, a language, and a religion when they left. When they left, they came as 70 in number. They left 600,000 in number. They had a culture, a language, and a religion. No clear religion in Africa with no clear. They entered Africa with no clear language, no clear religion, and no clear culture. When they left, they came as 70 in number. They left 600,000 in number. They had a culture, a language, and a religion when they left.
Actually, I was going to play that a little bit later. And I'm glad I decided to play it at the beginning to set the direction up. It is an insulting. It is an insult when people are slapping people right in the faces and knowing what the truth is. But people are like, well, it's not for us to tell other people about the Jawishism and actually where it comes from and how people did not, who migratoried, right, up from a certain area. And they came down to Egypt or Kemet, and they didn't have a language or a complete language or culture or religion. But when they left, then they had the culture and they had religion. And then they became the Jawishness people and Israelites and Israel. Do you understand? So getting to this story as well, that you had people that did not have a religion, did not have a culture, did not have complete language. And all of a sudden, bam, they go into Egypt. And then all of a sudden, bam, became what we call Jawishism. You see this game. So in this situation with the 80th anniversary liberation at Auschwitz Concentration Camp, but American blacks are told to forget about their history. You better not tell people of Jawishism who know who they are. That old bad Hitler, he did all this stuff to the Jawish people. Do you understand? You see how this goes. It was a terrible situation. At the same time, you see where there was also game plan in there. Because Hitler wouldn't run around acting like he liked the American blacks. Right? What, you think there's no American blacks that was over there from World War I over around this areas in World War II? You think there's no American blacks around there? Huh? Oh, you don't hear anything about that, do you? Just like you don't hear anything about too much about numbers of people within Africanness or some other personnel within the category black, they would call, that was in those concentration camps. But you don't hear too much about that, right? They hide that a lot, don't they? And they make sure to tell people, oh, well, you know, who was basically just say Jawishism and a few other people. You see how that disgusting tactic goes. But you better not forget World War II relating to what Hitler did to Jawishism people. Jawishism people. You hear what I said? Jawishism people. Jawishism people. Right? Just like this particular symbol, right? And you see already this symbol. Look on this, what we call Native Indians, what we call over and over. This is what Native Indians is supposed to look like. We ain't gonna talk about who came before them, right? Right? But you see already the symbol, right? But it has nothing to do with a Hitler, right? That Hitler looked upon a symbol to try to see if they can relay over something, and they happen to pick this one, which has nothing to do with Nazism, but it has something to do with good luck, right? Best wishes, good life. You see already what we call this Native American. You see already on those little feathers, the same symbol, right? But we're told and knocked in our heads left and right about that swastika means Nazism and associated with Hitler, what he did to the Jewish people. You see how this goes. So let me play a few minutes of this particular video. I'm utilizing these things that are under fair usage doctrine. So I'm just sitting there showing you. You see these symbols, right? See the symbol? Hmm?
This is a swastika, a word of Sanskrit origin, svastika, meaning to be fortunate. But the swastika is most famous in the Western world because of its adoption by the Nazi Party in the early 20th century and has since come to be associated with Nazi ideals and white supremacism. But here's a photo from a Buddhist pagoda I took in China a few years ago. A swastika right on the chest of the Buddha. Now, I'm fairly certain that Buddha was not a Nazi. So, what exactly is this symbol, and where did it come from? The oldest known example of this shape was carved into mammoth ivory around 10,000 years ago, and was found in what is now Ukraine. Other prehistoric carvings of swastikas throughout the world have been found in England, Iran, India, and the Americas. Breaking it down geometrically, the classic swastika is usually drawn proportionally like this, and can be right or left facing. But there's a myriad of ways to shape and interconnect these four legs that are still swastikas. Because the shape is so simple, it was developed multiple times independently by peoples in different parts of the world and was just as common as the shape of a star or a swirl. The swastika is one of the most common symbols found on Mesopotamian coins. It was found carved into seals of the Indus River Valley civilization, and was later an integral symbol of the ancient religions of Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. In many cultures, it adopted the meaning of infinity, as with the Armenians, who further developed it into this symbol here. To the Hindus, a right-facing swastika represents the day, and a left-facing swastika the night. The ancient Greeks and Romans were also fond of the swastika, and it saw much use in architecture, usually in the meander, where it was referred to as Greek keys. It can also be seen on all these coins from Corinth that were made during the 6th century BC. In Greece, the swastika also has a special name. It's known as the Gammadian cross, coming from the Greek letter gamma, since the cross was formed by 4 of these letters. The Chinese used the swastika in near every context imaginable, from shrines to paper decorations to the robes of the emperor himself, incorporating it into different characters and designs. The swastika itself is also considered a Chinese character and has its own proper stroke order. It is pronounced Wan, or referred to as Wanzi, the Wan character. It is a homophone for the word meaning 10,000, so using the swastika in any design is said to increase the luck of good fortune by 10,000 as well. It is even coded into Unicode at point U5340 and U5350, right in the middle of a large section of other common Chinese characters, and can easily be typed with any form of Chinese input on your computer. In Korean, it's called manja, and in Japanese, manji, holding the same meaning as in Chinese, still being a homophone for 10,000. In both these places, the swastika is used in design in much the same way as in China, and even became the family crest of the Hachisuka Masakatsu clan. Far west of the Far East, ancient Celts also used the symbol and associated it with Thor, or specifically with Mjolnir, his hammer. Other times it was used to represent the sun and has been found carved into numerous stones and engraved into metal. In medieval Christianity, the swastika was used as a hooked cross, and can be seen on the vestments of the effigy of Bishop William Eddington in 1366, and on the stole of a priest in a 1445 painting of the Seven Sacraments, used simply as a stylized version of the cross. In sub-Saharan Africa, the swastika was carved into the window of this Ethiopian church built in the 12th century, and is used in East Africa by the Ashanti as one of their special symbols used in gold weights, textiles, and pottery. And in the Americas as well, many different people, both in the north and south, use the swastika in clothing and carvings to represent prosperity and luck.
Do you understand this game? Does that look like Nazism to you? Does that look like a Hitler to you? What I just done show you, it came before Hitler in World War II, right? Hitler didn't become Chancellor of Germany until the early 1930s, right? So he wasn't even the leader, basically. Hitler was a Chancellor of Germany. And he didn't even go into Poland until 1939. And this is when you start having the Auschwitz concentration camp becoming opened. And it was actually army barracks before that. But if you don't know the history, see, people can dictate what they want for people to know. And this is why it is bashed on the heads of people left and right mentally over and over in schools and colleges and entities to never forget the Jawishness and what that bad Hitler did. Do you understand? It is a disturbing tactic, right? It's a disturbing tactic, but it succeeds over and over because it is a golden goose of resources. But American blacks are told to get over the past, right? It's like this. Watch this for a second. What does it say? Warning: mauling, drain, trucking, and delivery wagons not allowed in this park and are prohibited by city ordinance by Ben Campbell Mayor. Negroes keep out. This was going on after World War II, and that old bad Hotline, what he did to what we supposed to call Jewish people. That's it. Negroes keep out, not other people keep out. No one has ever come close to the type of Jim Crow segregationists of American blacks. Nobody. A few people have a little stuff. Oh, no Indies over here and no Irish need our plot. Go to hell with that tactic. Nobody comes close. Numbers of Irish personnel became honorary numbers of people within the Palmate's culture. Stop. Numbers of what we call Native Americans, right? Who became $5 Indians, right? So stop. Numbers of Native tribes, what we call that, right? The ones that were sitting there in enslavement, numbers of black folks, right? And when the war ended, Civil War ended in 1865, numbers of what we call Indian tribes, the ones supplies to, they didn't want to let go of some number of black folks that was enslaved by Native tribes. Do you see how this game go? But numbers of them are getting reparations. You see how this damn shit stuff goes. Many people benefit off American black pain. But when it's time to pay up these reparations, you got people who don't play dumb. But they don't play dumb about reparations going to what we call Jewish people. It ain't some gigantic amount of them, what we call Jewish people, that was in certain sections of concentration camps, but relating to this story, the Auschwitz concentration camp, which was in Poland. It ain't that many left. But at the same time, what? You think that money is going to dry up? Right? I don't think so. That money's passed down. Resources are passed down. Right? But American blacks are told, we ain't got anything to do with slavery. So after centuries, right? Jim Crow laws, right? Hatred, lynchings, racial segregation laws, policies, etc. Right? Bad enforcing people, knocking people teeth out, throw them on the ground. Right? Get over the past. Nobody else is told this nonsense. Nobody. But so many people benefit off of black pain. Right? So does before I show you the other videos, again, does this symbol look like Nazism to you? Of course not. So let's continue. What actually one of the videos I'm going to go ahead and show you that was talking about the 80th anniversary.
Tomorrow marks 80 years since the.
Oh, and by the way, this is today is February the 21st, 2025, the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz Concentration Camp in World War II. The 80th anniversary started actually in January of 2025, right? So I'm just putting that also in perspective. So 80th anniversary, right? 80 years ago. The liberation of Auschwitz Concentration Camp in Auschwitz, which is Poland. 80th anniversary, 80 years ago, but American blacks are told to get over the past. So let me go ahead and play this video, and I'm utilizing this as fair usage doctrine.
Tomorrow marks 80 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz Concentration Camp.
The Illinois Holocaust Museum and a local survivor are observing the somber anniversary by educating the public about the atrocities of the Holocaust and commemorating the millions of Jews and many others killed. Atrocities of the Holocaust and commemorating the millions of our anniversary by educating the public about the atrocities of the Holocaust.
But American blacks are told to get over the past. That's still going on in Americanism. The anti-American black hatred is still going on toward American blacks. And again, I'm not talking about coons and sellouts and deflectors. You see how this goes, right? The hatred of American blacks is still going on. But they're told to get over the past. But you better get over what the bad man Holler did over there in Germany to what we call the Jewish people and some other people.
And commemorating the millions of Jews and many others killed by the Nazis. Our Sean Lewis reports.
Times when our past can be easily accessed. At the Illinois Holocaust Museum in Skokie, they are marking the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz Concentration Camp by Russian soldiers.
Shock, disbelief. It was terrible. It was a terrible thing to see.
See how they have a token in there? Oh, you best believe they vexed this token to make sure you understand that you are real. You will feel sympathy. You will feel sorrow, regardless of what we tell you about what Jewish people went through. But at the same time, American Black history, don't you talk about that? Do you understand how this disgusting tactic keeps going? And by some people, you look at this person. I mean, he might not be exactly of an American Black origin, American Black lineage. Just saying.
Something you can't even prepare for.
Raheem Thompson is senior pro.
And if he is, regardless, there are coons. You best believe they ain't gonna allow a reality thinking American Black male to be put in a position to be talking about these kind of things, right? I don't think so.
Program manager for the museum. Skokie is one of many sites around the world taking note. The main observance is taking place here at Auschwitz on Monday, the site in southern Poland where Nazi troops put more than 1 million people to death. It's estimated 17 million total were killed in the Holocaust.
The entry gate in Auschwitz is notorious because it had that ironic symbol above it.
Manfred Goldberg is a survivor, and he's talking about the metalwork here in German. It translates to work makes you free.
But at the same time, they tell American Blacks to get over the past. You see the insultingness of this. Again, this is the 80th anniversary liberation at Auschwitz Concentration Camp. But American Blacks are told to get over the past. You see how this goes.
It became realistic that once you walked through that gate, you were under a sentence of death.
He is now 94, and it was just 13 when he, his mom, and 9-year-old little brother were taken as prisoners by the Nazis.
When we finally reached the camp, we each were inspected as to our potential of slave laboring. He decided, apparently, that I was fit for slave labor and pointed me in the direction of those surviving. My little brother, aged 9, did not. So he lost his life. He was murdered.
Goldberg is now one of a dwindling number of survivors still alive.
Everything we do is around education, and that's where it starts.
One of the exhibits at the museum at Skokie are interviews with other survivors. They're recorded in hologram form, and you can ask questions of them that will then prompt the answers that they gave at the time.
Any way is digestible for anyone that really wants to learn. There are so many different ways for so many different age groups.
It's an enduring legacy younger generations are racing to preserve.
What did that background say? They're racing to preserve this history, right? But at the same time, when you start talking about slavery and talking about Jim Crow laws, American blacks are told to get over the past. Do you see the disgustingness and the insultingness and the salivating basically toward American blacks, American black personnel who have lost their lives fighting to be treated as citizens? Numbers of American blacks who sit there and got lynched, sitting there fighting, right, to be treated as citizens. Numbers of American blacks who've been lynched trying to fight to be treated as citizens. Places like the iconic Selma, Alabama, 1965, Bloody Sunday, right? When you had numbers of black folks, not numbers of white Hispanics, not white Indians, not white Asians, right? Caste system Asians. You get the point. Not border breaking illegal immigrant personnel, not immigratingness, right? They was getting their head bashed in by bad seats on horses, right? They would run over women, run over men. Do you understand that? Go across the Confederate officer Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, getting ran over. That was after World War II. That was after sit there the bad Hotler man did that what we call Jawage personnel and Howard numbers of others, right? Just like was Emmett Till, 1955, right? How Carolyn racial racist demonic Bryant, right, was allowed to go decades to still be alive, not to be locked up in her demonic self. Where in 1955, when she sit there and said, oh, in Mississippi, how she sit there and blame a little black boy, a teenage black boy, for doing what? Whistling to her? And they sit there and committed acts of inhumanity toward a black teenager? Where it relayed to his mom, no, if you don't mind, leave the casket open to see what these racial racism, terrorism did to the hatred toward an American black boy. That was after World War II, 1941, 1945. Do you understand? But American blacks are told to get over the past. Go to hell. The ones that play that tactic.
Prevent history from being lost. Worse, repeated. On this 80th anniversary of liberation, Goldberg says it is his mission still to talk about it as an eyewitness to atrocity.
I'm only a drop in the ocean, but I've made up my mind that as long as God gives me the strength, physical and mental, to continue doing it.
You see how this goes, right? But American blacks are told to forget about the past. They're told, hey, you know what? This right here associated with Nazism, right? But you should not see on this, what we call Native Indian. Who you talking about? There is many numbers of Native Indians, right? Do you see how this game goes? And how many get reparation for the white men take our land, the white men take our land, right? And they don't sit there and tell them to get over the past. They don't sit there and say it. They don't sit there, numbers of personnel with the predominant culture, the ones who know they are with that progenitorial, absurd, demonic, deranged, anti-American blackism, their mentality, the ones it applies to, they don't tell what we call Native Americans to get over the past and, oh, they're woke for sitting there telling things. Do you understand? It's only American blacks that are told this, right? Numbers of white Hispanics are the ones it applies to, right? The one who want to be honorary numbers of ones within the predominant culture. You have numbers of white Asian, the one that wants to be part of the predominant culture. You understand where I'm coming from? Right? Oh, they know who they are. Immigrationists who want to sit there and have the nerve to try to look down upon American blacks while fleeing from their damn country of origin, Hell, it's even worse. This is worse. We had numbers of personnel fleeing from the ancient continent of Africa, the giganticness of the ancient continent of Africa. And you got numbers of personnel within certain sections of Africa that are running to Europe, running to America, getting away from this ancient land, this ancient iconic land. What an embarrassment. Right? And again, I'm not talking about some few that'll say, you know what, they just want to, look at different opportunities, different places. No wrong with that. And they mind their business. But unfortunately, that is a small amount. There's quite a number of other numbers of personnel in certain parts of Africa who have the audacity to try to look down upon American blacks. Oh, they damn kidding. And certain ones from certain parts of the Caribbean islands, the ones it applies to, when all that old island tribalism that's going on too, the nerve of some personnel down that area, the ones it applies to. And all that extreme tribalism going on in certain sections of Africa, the ones it applies to. Do you see this game, right? Running to America, running to Europe, but running to America, but us to tell America about to get over the past. But you best believe some of the same personnel better not damn tell people to forget about what the Jawas people went through over there, that bad Hitler. You understand that? And those American blacks better get the hell in a mentality, right? And they start correcting the hell out of people, saying, tell them to go to hell. We're playing games, right? And tell American blacks to get over their past. So you see already, did this swastika look like that came from some bad man, a native Indian? Of course not. This grammaton symbol was way before holla, but that bad holla was even born, which I've already played that. So let's continue. Okay, yeah, okay. Because remember that symbol right there. That symbol right. Hold on. Let me get back here. So that symbol right there. Oh my goodness, that is a poster board of hatred. But you start showing Ku Klux Klan symbols, right? Hatredness. Oh, get over the past. And the crazy part about it, holla, that old bad holla, right? Who got his eugenics mentality from certain numbers of personnel within the Panamese culture. Before he became leader of Germany, he got his deranged eugenics hatred from certain ones from within the Panamese culture in America. But they don't want people to know about that. Do you understand the insultingness and almost like the salivating upon numbers of millions of American blacks, with very few exceptions, that don't even know the insultingness that is continuously salivated in the faces of millions of American blacks that are told to get over the past, right? So let me go ahead and play, got a couple of last videos, but watch this for a second. You see that? Let me remove that because you know sometimes people get a little algorithm funniness, but right, you see that part, right? You see that? You see that part, right? But watch this. But you see that symbol, right? But numbers of American blacks are told to get over the past, right? And got people that don't want numbers of American blacks by means to know real history. But you see that? You see this, what we call Native American, Native Indians on his little feathery thing, got the little swastika thing, right? Do you think he believed in Nazism? Of course not. Right? But at the same time, look on that right arm of Hitler, right? You see how this goes, right? So let me go ahead and play this particular fellow who not too long ago made some certain saluteness that did I get rid of that? Okay. Who made a certain saluteness like this, right? And try to make excuses, right? So let me go ahead and play that part. Give me one moment. Very important part. Give me a second here. Yep, right here. I'm utilizing this as timepiece purposes as well, just as in utilizing this as fair usage doctrine. Uh-huh. Oh. Uh-huh. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Uh-huh. Right. Oh, oh, oh. Uh-huh. Right? Oh boy. Oh my. Right? But American blacks are told to get over the past, right? And say, fans, what you just saw. Give me a second here. So what you saw is really what you saw is really what you did not see, right? But remember, look at that. And you saw, oh, but he really did sit there, that old, you know, that person before. Oh, they didn't sit there and make that salute, but at the same time, it looked just like this. Did it not look just like that? But people gonna keep playing games and tactics, right? So I think that's about all. Well, actually, I wanted to show you just a map of something. Let me show you a map, and I think I'm about to finish up here because American blacks are told to forget about the past, right? But at the same time, right? But for the people who don't know, look at this map right here for a second. This is Auschwitz concentration camp in Auschwitz, Poland, right? In 1939, when German or Hitler invaded Poland, this or numbers of some of these parts of this concentration camp, Auschwitz concentration camp, was actually army barracks. And they transferred that over or changed it to hold various prisoners, which some of the first prisoners were like Polish, some Soviet POWs, and some political dissident type personnel. And then you start having certain numbers of Jewish people that were put in these concentration camps. But let other people tell it, oh, it was numbers of Jewish people that were first put in these camps. Do you understand this? It was still terrible, but regardless, right? It wasn't just numbers of Jewish people the way that people keep trying to make it seem like. And then when it's like you got them on the one side of this, they said, well, it was a few other, people, some different other cultures, but they make sure that you better not forget first and foremost Jewishism. Even though places like Auschwitz concentration camp, right, which is also like a poster board of that's blurred out of like, oh, look at what the Nazis did to the Jewish people. This is the poster board concentration camp because they had what they call Auschwitz concentration camp or death camp. They also had Auschwitz Birkenau, which is just an extension. Auschwitz, I think Birkenau the 3 or Auschwitz the 3 Birkenau. These are just different sections of Auschwitz as you concentration camp or death camp, or you want to call it labor camp, as you see, right? Until the liberation came in 1945 by the Russians, numbers of Russians. Now all of a sudden now you got all numbers of Russians are the enemy. You see how these games go, right? You see how this goes. But American blacks are told to forget about the past, right? But again, this is Auschwitz concentration camp. Or various camps within this, on this situation. You see the various barracks and things like this, what they call the registration building right here, what they call the gas chambers and stuff like that, the admin part. These are the various barracks. You see all the red? These are various extensions of the Auschwitz concentration camp, labor camp, death camp, right? Which also include the Auschwitz, Birkenau. Birkenau was just an extension of the camp of Auschwitz, what you call Auschwitz II. Also various areas of that part. But you see at the bottom, April the 4th, 1944, right? When Harvard surveillance was taking pictures of this camp. And people trying to figure out how to invade this particular concentration camp to liberate people. So I think that's about all I wanted to show on this particular topic today, right? But again, American blacks are told to forget about the past, right? They're told to, again, to forget about things like this.
I don't believe in segregation. I believe in slavery. I don't believe in segregation. I believe in slavery.
All right. But American blacks are told to forget about the past, right? For what? Color and minority. That is silliness. And being used talking about BPOC, right? BPOC and stuff like excuse me, hold on for a second. Who's this? BPOC and things like that, right? Hello? Excuse me, sorry. And BPOC, which means Black, Indigenous, and people of color, right? And you got numbers of American blacks utilizing that silly topic. What is Black, right? That's very generic. Or should I say an Indigenous, the I part? Who are you talking about? That's many different people. And people of color. Let me go back. But you got American blacks about a million. Well, the ones within that millions, with very few exceptions, talking about people of color, right? Modern day American blacks, by the millions, are becoming more of a laughingstock collectively, with very few exceptions, right? Again, what does this say? Warning: mauling, drain, trucking, delivery wagons not allowed in this park and are prohibited by city ordinance. Ben Campbell, mayor. Negroes keep out. But American blacks are told, again, to forget about the past, right? Colored waiting room. But you got, again, numbers of American blacks utilizing the work, with very few exceptions, Tom, that allow people to play this little people of color game. Do you understand these little disgusting tactics? And American blacks, about a million, allow people to use that silly ass woke word on American blacks, right? But again, they're not using woke on what we call Native Americans, saying white men take our land and getting reparations. They're not using woke on numbers of Palestinians, calling them woke. They're not utilizing numbers of Israeli personnel, calling them woke, right? People talk about Hitler, man. What he did to the Jewish people, they're not saying they're woke. They're not telling immigrating personnel to stay woke. They're not telling Ukrainian personnel, hey, man, stop complaining about what's going on in Ukraine, man. Stop you're being woke. Do you understand? They're not telling border breakers hey, you're being woke. Do you understand that? They're not telling them as Indians from India, hey, you know what? Hey, don't you ever talk about what British have done to the Indians, or don't talk about what any little bad stuff happening them, and don't be woke. Do you understand this game? Right? American blacks been in this country for America for centuries. And they are the only damn people that is worthy to sit there and be able to say what the hell they want to say about American history. Nobody compares to the American blacks. Nobody. I don't remember anything about numbers of person that within the predominant culture being grabbed up by American blacks and put on auction blocks all along the 13 freaking colonies. I don't remember nobody saying that they American blacks were coming up with racism, terrorism laws and policies and Jim Crow laws toward numbers of Caucasian people for generations. I don't remember American blacks having miscegenation laws that was going on in late 1960s saying you better not sit there and marry black people, right? I don't remember people having numbers of personnel with a predominant culture, numbers of immigrants, numbers of what we call white Asians, white Hispanic. You get the point. Numbers of personnel who have the skin of black, numbers of personnel from certain sections of Africa, certain personnel, the person from the Caribbean islands, the ones applies to. I don't sit there and remember them sitting there being, again, lynched like American blacks. Huh? Again, I don't remember all these different people having Jim Crow laws put upon them left and right. Do you understand how crazy this sounds? When American blacks are told to get over the past. But like in this topic today, 80th anniversary of liberation at Auschwitz Concentration Camp. But American blacks are told to get over the past, right? And that symbol, which is a poster board for Nazism, as you see right there, that has nothing to do with eugenics or the final solution to get what we call Jewish people, which I've already talked about the origins of that by the great Dr. John Henry Clark, who is a American black. May his soul rest. And the problem is that there is just not enough American blacks that are sitting there being knowledgeable on reality-based history. See, they want to know as American blacks just to listen to bad versions of hip-hop, to use the N-word all over the place, and then get mad when some other people use the word. And then other silly little people who know what they are say, why can't we use it? But at the same time, American blacks better not use any kind of derogatory word toward their people. That's fleeing from that person's country or certain types of Caribbean islands, once applies to. And again, I'm not talking about numbers of good ones, but you get the point I'm getting at. American blacks are looked at as, modern day is looked at as, again, laughingstock collectively. And even though nobody else in America compares to the historical powerhouse of American blacks. But the problem is, again, modern day, quite a number of American blacks have fell off and allow people to dictate, right, what should and should not be talked about. And American blacks consistently are put on the back burner while other people are just having fun getting resources, right, governmental resources and benefits and border break illegal immigrant numbers of women popping out, babies like roaches and other different groups of people, women doing the same thing, immigrating, the ones who are doing this. And getting, bam, automatic citizenship, getting free WIC, free food stamps for that child. And as that child and grow up, then they're anchor babied. Then that woman and certain numbers of males, they are anchored, right? And then so like certain ones in India, oh, that's a known tag. Oh, they know who they are. Certain ones from certain parts of Africa, certain parts of the Caribbean, the ones apply to certain other groups, they know who they are. They break immigration laws, the one they supplies to, right? Pop out kids left and right. Bam, automatic citizenship, right? They sit there and just take their time, right? And they plot to bypass even more American blacks. Do you see this disgusting tactic? This is why for many generations, the demographics in this country, where we would call white, whatever that's supposed to mean, because now you have people that can slot under minority banner that have the skin of white, but they can dip in, dip out, and play minority status. Ones who can do that. But for generations, the only main three cultures were we call white, two Native Americans, whatever that's supposed to mean, because you got $5 Indians and 2.25 Indians, what you want to call it. And you got three, it was American blacks. Those are the three largest populations. Now American blacks have fell to the fourth largest population. Now it's basically white, depending on where you're at, Hispanics, American blacks, and Asians. I would say probably the next few amount of generations, if that, American blacks will probably fall to number 4 or close to it. But now certain other cities and certain other states, now you got numbers of Hispanics that are number 1. Do you understand? Right? And certain other Hispanics can't stand other Hispanics. And they certainly don't like Afro-Hispanics. So that's a whole game in itself. So I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP show, right? But remember, this symbol is supposed to be the worst of the worst, right? Because that old bad Hitler, even though that symbol came way before Hitler was even born. Again, I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP show.